Good morning. I'm Chris Chansing here with Greg Jarrett, and there is a major incident in Lower Manhattan in the World Trade Center, which is in the Wall Street area of New York City. You are looking at live pictures. Apparently, a plane has crashed into one of the upper floors of the World Trade Center. Now, according to eyewitnesses, it appeared that the plane, and we don't know exactly what that plane is, was having some difficulty. It was being described by witnesses as listing back and forth from wingtip to wingtip, and it is difficult to tell from this perspective, but we are being told that the plane may be embedded in that upper floor of the World Trade Center.
It is just right now that we are beginning to get some details in these first pictures from the World Trade Center. Of course, the Twin Towers there, and you can see near the top floors the damage to the building and the smoke billowing from it. By the way, this is not the first time that a plane has crashed into a building in Manhattan. If I recall correctly, it was sometime during World War II that a military plane crashed into the Empire State Building, killing several people there. But this has just happened a short time ago. The World Trade Center in Manhattan, the southern tip of Manhattan, a plane has crashed into one of the two structures there and appears to be embedded therein. And remember, it is shortly before 9 o'clock East Coast time, so we suspect there would have been a great many people in the building and presumably on those top floors as well. The building's history is full of oddities, you might say, and marvelous accomplishments. But we do want to mention that World War II, and here it is, 1945, an Army Air Corps B-25 twin-engine bomber crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building, and so it has now happened again some 55 years later, this time in the World Trade Center, the two tallest buildings, the Twin Towers, in the southern tip of Manhattan.
The World Trade Center, of course, a major area of business in Lower Manhattan. They are known as the Twin Towers, and this would have been a time of the morning when huge numbers of people are going to work. This is obviously largely an office building. One of the eyewitnesses said this is not a private plane, that according to at least one eyewitness who saw the plane having some difficulty, it appeared to him to be a large passenger plane. In any case, a plane has gone into the upper floors of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. This is the Wall Street area of New York City.
Well, one can only imagine what has happened there, both inside the building, to the people who came to work this Tuesday morning before 9 o'clock, and a lot of people do. And not only that, but it is very crowded below on the streets in between and around the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. Surely debris came showering down on the people below as well. We do not have any reports of injuries or deaths as yet. That should be coming to us very, very shortly. But it is a scene. It's impossible to believe, however, just taking a look at the scene and knowing the time of day and having been down to the World Trade Center, not only would there be a tremendous number of people who worked in the World Trade Center who were already in their offices, but there are many... Let's go to WNBC. They have an eyewitness. Let's listen in.
Which caught all of our attention. We looked up. It was making a beeline for the World Trade Center. It was very low, extremely low. Not a big plane like an airliner, but not a tiny propeller plane either. A small jet plane.
We can now see flames coming from the building. It appeared to you that the airplane was directly aimed at the World Trade Center?
It did appear that way to many of us that were here on the ground, yes.
Okay.
And when it hit, there was the big boom, a big cloud of smoke, some flames, and then mostly smoke. It just started flaming now.
Have you witnessed any people coming out of the building? Have they been able to tell you anything at this point?
No, I'm all the way up on 14th Street, so I can't see the building down below. It was only maybe a minute or two before you could hear sirens coming, so they did alert people right away, obviously, but You probably have a better fix on how many floors were damaged. It looks like quite a few floors.
Yeah, from what we're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I would say 15 to 18 stories, and there is debris falling off that building as we speak.
You did see shattered glass raining down after it hit, and, you know, like I said, a big cloud of smoke. But you couldn't tell much more from 14th Street.
Now, we had an earlier eyewitness that told us he thought it appeared to be a 737. What you saw was a small, perhaps twin-engine airplane?
No, not a twin engine. It was a jet of medium to smallish proportions. Not a big airliner, though.
Okay. Okay, so it appeared to be a... You heard this sound. I'm just trying to understand what happened. You heard a sound. That's what compelled you to look up into the sky.
No, you could hear a jet coming overhead, and it sounded low, so many of us looked up to see what was, you know, because it sounded so close. We all looked up.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it didn't look like it was swerving or out of control. It was going steadily lower. It was, you know, definitely going steadily lower, but it wasn't dropping like nose first or anything that would make you think that the plane was in trouble.
Right. Which then, of course, raises the question exactly what was that airplane doing and how did this occur?
Right.
But the airplane did not appear to be in trouble to you.
I don't know enough about airplanes to know what it should look like, but it wasn't nose down or it wasn't swerving up and down or left and right. It was making a straight, steady decline towards the World Trade Center.
Mary, I'm hearing what sounds to be an awful lot of people that are either crying or sobbing or something in the background.
That's my baby wondering why I'm still standing here. But there are a lot of us who are shaking or with tears coming down our faces because it's mind-boggling to think about how many people are up there who, you know, aren't anymore.
Exactly. And Mary, again, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments with us this morning. And I'm certain it was quite a frightening sight to have watched this. Let me reiterate what we think.
We have been listening to WNBC interview an eyewitness, and this is a horrible tragedy that has struck in the early morning rush hour period of time. People just coming to work at the World Trade Center. A plane has crashed into the upper floors of one of the Twin Towers.
This is a major area of commerce in Lower Manhattan in the Wall Street area. The World Trade Center complex includes 10.5 million square feet of office space, 300,000 square feet of retail space. It would have been very active already at this time of the morning. It is now just 9 o'clock on the East Coast. There are 239 elevators, 71 escalators at the complex. This gives you an idea of the enormity of it. More than 40,000 people work there. There are more than 400 firms at the World Trade Center from more than 25 different countries. And on any given day, more than 100,000 business and leisure visitors come to the World Trade Center. Jody Richards works here at MSNBC, happens to be in Lower Manhattan right now. Good morning, Jody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm actually downtown Jersey City on the corner of Grand Street, right on the water, looking straight at it. It's just tons of billowing smoke coming out of the top towers. You can't really see much of anything, but it really looks like the top of the building is majorly damaged. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. There's tons of trucks and everything downtown is just looks stopped.
Jody, if you can stand by, we want to bring in Lester Holt from here at MSNBC.
Yeah.
Please stay with us. See
Lester,
what you can observe
this
for
is
us.
being described by witnesses, as we understand, as a twin-engine plane. Can you help us out?
Let me tell you what I know about the flight patterns in this area. Right now, you're looking out towards Staten Island from this view. Planes coming into LaGuardia sometimes come over Staten Island. They will go to the east, up the East River. Other times they will come west up the Hudson, but again will go either side of the World Trade Center. Keep in mind, though, that there is what's called VFR, visual flight rule space, beneath the Trade Center, up and down the Hudson. You'll very often see small Cessnas, small planes flying under visual rules up and down the Hudson. Now, we've heard many descriptions of this plane, a twin engine, not quite an airliner. It could, in fact, be a commuter plane. Let's listen in now as it's described from WNBC's chopper.
Can you see down to the street to see what might be going on down there? Are there signs of the people that have evacuated the building? What can you tell? Can you see anything down there, or are you simply not close enough at this point?
We are simply not close enough right at this point. We are following the smoke in the air right now. There are several boats and watercraft, as we can see, in the river right now. We'll try to get a better vantage point and see what we can see on the ground. It's a little difficult from the air because the buildings kind of shadow the streets, but no doubt a lot of activity on the ground right now.
And in terms of the firefighting capabilities, when you get up to this high level, I assume the firefighters have got to get up there and, you know, fight it from inside. Oh. If you're taking a look now, you can see that we've just had another explosion, and that is considerably lower. And is that in the other building? Is that what I'm witnessing?
That apparently does look like it is in the other building at this point.
And that looks to be lower, which means there, you know, obviously there are considerable numbers of stories above that explosion that we just saw. Perhaps we can get another look from one of our sky cams that can take a different angle. Yes, you can tell that it now appears that both buildings are suffering some kind of damage this morning. My colleague, Glenn Walker, has just joined me here in the studio. And Glenn, I don't know if you've received any other information, but perhaps you can, again, go over what we do know at this point, which is pretty much visual and what eyewitnesses have told us.
Well, I would hate to speculate, but yeah, that looks like a completely separate incident right there. I mean, this building has been the subject of terrorist attacks in the past, and I certainly wouldn't want to speculate at this time, but that is a separate explosion.
Yes, it is.
In the other building. Now, we have tried to get a hold of the Port Authority, which manages the building. We haven't been able to get an answer. We did call MTA, and the MTA says the subway service as of right now is continuing, so that's not a problem because it's obviously very below, but I imagine that will change very quickly after what we just witnessed. That was a dramatic explosion. Again, it was in the separate tower than the one to where the plane just crashed into about a half hour ago.
Yes, and again, there was no sign of any airplane close to that explosion.
No. All right, we are going to re-rack the tape and show you what happened just moments ago, and that was an explosion in the second of the Twin Towers. And we're going to watch it for ourselves.
What you can see is
yes. It appeared as though a second plane coming from behind crashed into the second of the World Trade Center towers. A first plane happened about 15 minutes ago, struck one of the towers in the upper floors. A horrible tragedy. And now, just moments ago, another plane has struck the Twin Towers. Of course, the target of previous terrorist attacks. That possibility leaps to the mind. Again, we are seeing the second Twin Tower, the upper levels, an enormous explosion. It appeared to us as we watched the videotape twice now that a second plane had crashed into the Twin Towers.
This World Trade Center complex, as it is known, they are twin, known as Lego-type block towers. They are 110 stories. They rise 1,377 feet into the air. They are one of the defining characteristics of the New York City skyline, seen from anywhere. And there you see the second plane in the second tower going through, and there is the explosion into the World Trade Center of New York City. This obviously, if it is some sort of terrorist attack, would not be the first. February 26th, 1993 was the day that the World Trade Center was bombed.
A violent explosion ripping through the parking garage on that day, and the sub-basement levels of the World Trade Center. Immediately it killed 6 people, and it caused extensive damage, and several basement levels resulted in a massive fire that quickly distributed thick black smoke in the upper levels of
Greg,
the
let me
complex's
interrupt
buildings.
you. This came from the State Department on Friday. The State Department has released a worldwide caution. Let me read it to you. Now, I'm reading this to you cold. I have not seen it before. It was just handed to me. Over the last several months, the U.S. government has learned that U.S. citizens and interests abroad may be at increased risk of a terrorist action from extremist groups. We will continue to watch this part of the story. Let's listen into the coverage on WNBC.
Do you see people that are injured? What can you...
No, I can't. I'm on the 28th floor.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's minute to my vision. I really can't see too much.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Arlene, and please get out of that building and seek
Thank you.
safety.
I'm leaving right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, be safe. We have another
you.
witness, Janice Huff, on the telephone. I'm not sure if it's our Janice Huff, but she apparently was a witness to the second explosion.
You saw this? Where are you?
No. Listen, I'm watching TV right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can see the pictures that we have of the building, the first building, the one with the tower on the top. And as I'm watching it and you're talking, I see a plane flying behind the other tower. And I see it getting closer and closer to the building, and I'm thinking, is that a plane? And it was. And all of a sudden, I see this explosion in the other tower. So there was another plane.
So there was another plane with a second explosion.
From what I am looking at on television, from the angle that I was looking.
Here's a replay right here, I believe.
When I was watching this...
And so we have been watching WNBC News' coverage. They saw the same thing we did. A plane, a second plane coming in from behind and striking directly the second of the Twin Towers. Here it is, and the explosion in a moment. One would assume that these are twin attacks on the World Trade Center by two separate planes, and immediately one would begin thinking about a terrorist attack.
Yeah, one doesn't want to speculate too much, but again, on Friday, the State Department released a worldwide caution about extremist groups, and it said American citizens may be the target of a terrorist threat from extremist groups with links to Osama bin Laden. In the past, such individuals have not distinguished between official and civilian targets. As always, we are taking this information seriously. U.S. government facilities worldwide remain at a heightened state of alert. Now, you'll remember that when the World Trade Center explosion happened back in 1993, this was linked to Osama bin Laden's terrorist network.
The World Trade Center has 7 high-rise buildings, a shopping mall, several levels of underground parking, and if this was a terrorist attack, it was timed at a moment on the East Coast shortly before 9 o'clock, where there would have been a great many people inside these two buildings. There you see the second attack, the plane coming in, exploding in the second tower. There would have been a great many people inside these two towers who no doubt lost their lives, not to mention the debris raining down on people below. A very busy area, the southern part of Manhattan during rush hour. We do not have any reports of injuries or deaths, but surely that will be coming to us very shortly. Lester? Lester?
All right, what I want to do is take a look at that airplane in slow motion. It looks like a jet aircraft. There it is, frozen. Clearly a low-wing airplane. Looks to be a swept wing, which indicates a jet, and it looks like a sizable jet, perhaps an airliner or a commuter jet. Can we roll it just a little bit here? Okay, freeze it right there if you can. Clearly that is a swept-wing jet, which means a passenger-sized jet of some kind, which leads to all kinds of questions. Now, airplanes, airliners, are on radar. They have transponders that allow the controllers to not only see where the airplane is, the altitude, its flight number. A plane that would be flying in controlled airspace that would not be responding to controllers would be a source of concern, but frankly, there's nothing they can do about it. They could violate the pilot, they could fine him, all those sorts of things, but a determined pilot willing to do something, there is nothing they can do about it. Can we zoom in on the airplane now, digitally? Let's see if we can get a little closer look. But this clearly looks like, and I'm just from this angle, a 737, perhaps an A319 size airplane that looks very much like either a 737 or an A320, a plane that would carry over 100 passengers. Now, from the direction it's coming, we know Newark Airport is just about 10 miles from the west of this. LaGuardia is another 10 or 12 miles to the east, but this plane is coming east across the Hudson River as it makes this approach. That is clearly, from the indications I'm looking at, is a small jet, small airliner-sized jet. Looks to me either an A320 or a 737 size airplane. Unable to, of course, make out any markings, an airline or that, but again, there is nothing controllers could do if a maverick pilot decided to leave his flight plan, decided to leave his course, and make a suicide plunge like we have witnessed here. We don't know. Witnesses who saw the initial hit of the airplane said it was also a twin-engine airplane. Some discrepancies as to the size. Some believe it was a small commuter-sized plane. This plane you're looking at is the one we saw hit the second tower a short time ago. And from every indication in this shot that we have pushed in on digitally here, it is clearly, you see the upward swing of the wings. It's a swept wing, a jet design. Two large, like high bypass engines underneath, and there on the left of your screen, the explosion as that plane pierced the World Trade Center. We're going to show it to you again now and let you have another look at that attack that occurred just a few minutes ago. This is the frozen picture as a plane at this point is now coming, judging from the angle we saw from over the West Side Highway over the Hudson River from New Jersey. There it is. And that was a plane moving quickly, and it appeared to be on a course. It didn't appear to be a plane out of control, but one that was aiming towards the World Trade Center, and there is the huge plume of smoke. You've got to know that air traffic controllers right now are scratching their heads trying to figure out where this plane came from, if it was one that they were controlling and suddenly went maverick on them, one that came in from somewhere beneath their radar. As I mentioned earlier, there is what's called VFR traffic up and down the Hudson River. These are usually smaller planes who are just looking out for other airplanes, not under positive control, but the big jets are always under control. Greg?
Yeah, Lester, we are now just getting word from the Associated Press, an urgent wire, that the FBI is now investigating a hijacking. Also, this from an employee of United Airlines. He says he is hearing from the United Command Center that an American Airlines plane, a 757 Airbus, was hijacked and crashed purposely into the Trade Center. A second plane was then flown into the second tower, which we have been looking at on video replay. There you see the ISO, and now the explosion, the second tower, and that happened just minutes ago. I want to repeat again. The FBI, according to the Associated Press, is investigating a hijacking. We now are getting information from an employee of United that he is hearing the command center at United is investigating an American Airlines plane, a 757 Airbus, hijacked and crashed into the Trade Center. Chris?
The White House tells us, by the way, that President George W. Bush is aware of the disaster in New York City. We have not gotten any reaction yet from him or further details. But let's head over to Lester now for more information. Lester?
Greg, I just wanted to clear up. You said 757 Airbus. That would be two different types. The Boeing makes the 757. Airbus makes the A320, A319. Very similar looking airplanes, both twin engine, both consistent with that picture we saw there a moment ago. United Airlines operates both the 757 and the A319, A320 jets. It is impossible from that angle to say, but clearly that is a twin-engine jet consistent with a commercial airliner, the type that that United Airlines operates. But again, 757 is Boeing. Airbus makes the 319 and 20.
Lester, let me ask you this question because I'm just getting messaged from one of our employees here at MSNBC whose husband, and we hope to get him on the phone, saw this. He said it looked to him like it was a 737. Are those things that could be easily
It's so difficult from the angle. The 737, there's many models. It's a little shorter than the 757, but from the angle we're looking at, it's virtually impossible to tell. My guess is what we saw there was an A320. That's just my guess. But Chris, the bottom line,
in any case, we're talking about a major commercial
commercial airplane. Any one of those could hold a minimum of 120, 130 passengers. The 757 can hold in some configurations as many as 160 airplanes. This is a tragedy any way you spell it.
Yes, and it is unclear from the information we're getting from the employee of United whether or not the hijacking occurred with passengers on board or whether the plane was simply hijacked with pilots or maybe it was empty when it was hijacked. Unclear, but the command center at United indicating through an employee that they're suspecting a hijacked American Airlines plane. And again, we don't know what kind it is, but Lester, you've been eyeballing it, crashed purposefully into the Trade Center.
And we know that American Airlines operates a new operator of 737-800 aircraft, one of the newer versions. And again, that's consistent with the angle we saw there of the same type of airplane. Again, this is, I don't know what flight pattern they were using today, but up and down the Hudson is a frequent flight path for planes coming to LaGuardia Airport.
All right, let's take a look again, because first we saw there was an explosion in the first tower of the Twin Towers. This is the second one you can learn. Are we waiting for Mick to get hooked up? All right, we're going to wait for Mick to get hooked up, and while he is, let me tell you once again that on Friday, the State Department released a worldwide caution, which read in part, over the last several months, the U.S. government has learned that U.S. citizens and interests abroad may be at increased risk of a terrorist action from extremist groups. In addition, we have received unconfirmed information that terrorist actions may be taken against U.S. military facilities or establishments requested by U.S. military personnel. However, it went on to say that in the past, groups like that led by terrorist Osama bin Laden have not distinguished between official and civilian targets. As always, according to the State Department, we are taking this information seriously. U.S. government facilities worldwide remain at a heightened state of alert. And we heard from an employee of United that an American Airlines plane, we're not exactly sure what the model of it is, but a large passenger plane, and we could see it as the second one went into the tower, was hijacked and crashed purposely into the World Trade Center. A second plane then flew into the second tower.
In Washington, officials have indicated the FBI is investigating reports of a plane hijacking before the crashes. That would appear to dovetail with the information we are getting from a United employee that perhaps an American Airlines jet had been hijacked. No immediate reports of injuries or fatalities in the twin disasters. It happened before 9 a.m., but surely there are.
Joe Cantamesa joins us on the phone. He's been a guest with us many times before, but he is former lead investigator for the World Trade Center bombing back in 1993. Joe, let me get your reaction, your observations to what's happening right now in Lower Manhattan.
Well, clearly this is a tragedy, but more than a tragedy, this is an outrageous crime that will clearly be examined and worked like no other in history.
What is your first impression? Should we put anything into this worldwide caution that was released by the State Department on Friday that named Osama bin Laden?
Well, I think absolutely. I mean, this is such a high-level attack at this point. I think only serious resources could have really brought about some kind of a criminal act of this type. And the questions that will be asked immediately in the investigation that will follow will certainly be who knew about it, where was it planned from, and of course, what is the investigative course of action?
What will be the first places, in addition to Osama bin Laden, that investigators are likely to look, Joe?
Well, clearly, every possible source from every terrorist group is going to be closely examined and is probably happening as we speak. The question is, what bit of information has been overlooked, if any, and what new information can be picked up in a timely fashion so we can act on this, without any hesitation.
When the World Trade Center bombing happened, remind us, Joe, did we learn that there had been signs? Had there been warnings, or did it come out of nowhere?
There were small signs, but nothing that came together because, if you might recall, the actual domestic terrorism threat was thought to be so low that even resources were being reallocated away from terrorism. That, of course, spooled things up, and the investigation and the people, were added to it. This has, however, been now at a time where heightened security and heightened awareness has been throughout the world, and the questions are going to be what information and what investigative agencies have any information, and what else may be about to happen is really what concerns me the most.
Where do you even begin to start with an investigation like this, and secondarily concern about other attacks?
Well, the very first thing that's going to be taking place, and I'm sure it's happening as we speak, is the the FBI and all of the intelligence agencies are going to absolutely open up their communications lines and determine what, if any, information is shareable and who knows what about anything going on around the world. If you recall, after the World Trade Center bombing, there was the follow-up case of the blind sheikh and his crew that was going to have multiple targets, the bridges, tunnels, and buildings. While the World Trade Center may in fact be, you know, a significant symbol within the New York City and the world community, there are many, many other vulnerable targets that stand at risk at this point, and they have to determine in the shortest amount of time what other credible risks, if any, are out there, so precautionary measures or investigative intervention can take place.
Let me interrupt for just a moment to give you a couple of updates on the situation. A senior government official has said that the agency, the FBI, is pursuing reports that one or both of the planes were hijacked and the crash is the result of a suicide mission. That comes on the heels of last Friday's warning from the State Department about possible terrorist attacks and in specific reference to Osama bin Laden. Now we are also learning that through WNBC that airports and the Lincoln Tunnel have been closed. It says airports plural. I don't know if that means all three of the New York City airports. I would presume it does. That would be Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK Airport. The Lincoln Tunnel, which extends from New Jersey to Manhattan, is closed. President Bush appears to have canceled his event. And let me just get in here for a second. Yes, he will be making a statement shortly and then depart for Washington, D.C. from Florida, where he was down there speaking about his education plan. So the president has quickly canceled his event. He will make a statement shortly. We'll carry it live. He'll then make his way to Washington, D.C. In the meantime, all of the New York City airports have been shut down. The Lincoln Tunnel has been closed in the aftermath of what happened in the last half hour, and that is two planes that appear to have crashed deliberately into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. A horrible tragedy.
We have standing by on the phone Joe Cantamesa, former lead investigator for the attack on the World Trade Center in 1993. Joe, if you'd continue to stand by, but just to set this up for people who are just joining us, let's go back over to Lester Holt to explain exactly what unfolded just a short time ago. Lester?
When we went on the air at 9 o'clock, one tower was already burning, and then after a few minutes, while we were all watching live, another airplane appeared in the picture. Let's punch up, if we can, that shot, and I'll give you an idea of exactly what happened here. This is the other airplane. I'm going to telestrate here. Can we punch that up full? Okay, we're going to try and get it up here in a second. But, and there it, okay, we're rewinding. But it was a airliner. There it is. That one right there flies directly into the other tower that had previously been untouched, right through the tower. The airplane, if we can go back to that frozen shot, is clearly a commercial airliner of some sort. It has all the telltale marks of a commercial airliner, a swept wing, two big engines slung underneath. It is very difficult to tell what kind of airplane that is, but clearly the big high bypass, those big fat engines under each wing, that is a commercial airliner. NBC's Andrea Mitchell, our chief foreign affairs correspondent, joins us now from Washington with more information. Andrea, what do you have?
Lester, I've just talked to a top U.S. official who tells me that their early reports are that at least one of those planes was a hijacked American Airlines plane en route from Boston to Los Angeles. That's one of the two planes. This same official says that there was no terror alert other than the usual worldwide caution. They had no warnings on bin Laden or other types of terror alerts coming into our intelligence community. But a senior U.S. official says that their early reports, and we should caution that early reports in these kinds of incidents are often incorrect, but this early report coming to a top U.S. official is that at least one of the two planes was a hijacked American Airlines plane en route from Boston to Los Angeles. Lester?
We should say American Airlines operates 737s and 757s, both of which might seem similar to what we see there. Andrea, tell us there's got to be a game plan of the U.S. government for something of this magnitude. What is kicking into the works right now as we speak?
Primarily the FBI. This is the kind of operation that would be immediate response from the FBI. Now, you know, after the World Trade Center bombing some years ago, that New York created, to some criticism in fact, but Mayor Giuliani created an emergency response center and spent a great deal of money. There is an emergency center in New York City. There have been drills. Now, many cities in the country, including New York, have not passed all of their drills, but there have been emergency response teams recently reorganized within the past year to try to centralize the emergency response mechanism so that it is not as diffuse. There were so many different agencies that would respond to the possibility of bioterror, to any kind of chemical alert. So what they discovered is that the big effort by the Clinton administration to respond to these kinds of things was not up to snuff according to preliminary reviews by the new administration, and they were trying to streamline that approach. In fact, one of the top officials in charge of anti-terror responses domestically was moved sort of sidelined, and a new team within the NSC was being created.
And one of the things we should point out is that America is virtually defenseless to a maverick or a hijacked airplane. We still have primarily Air National Guard units, air defense units based on the coasts of the United States to look for intruders, drug intruders, bombers, other airplanes that may try to penetrate U.S. airspace, but they are not geared up to deal with a threat that may come from within U.S. airspace, which may be the case here. And even if they were aware of it, if these planes were in fact carrying passengers, as that report would indicate, they would be defenseless to do anything about it. We have looked at this shot over and over again, and this plane appears to be under complete control and aimed directly at the Trade Center. Let's put up that shot again now, if we can give you a better idea of the airplane that we saw. This was the second attack, and here it is, clearly guiding directly clearly guiding directly into that tower. These are planes that have two cockpit members usually, the captain and the first officer. The cockpits are locked. We all know about metal detectors and all that sort of thing, but if someone poses a threat, you know, presents a weapon, threatens a weapon, who knows what could happen on an airplane here. And the question is, you look at this and you wonder who could possibly fly an airplane directly into a building, even a cockpit member under some sort of duress. You wonder how difficult it would be to aim a plane directly, and there it is. And I want to point out what we were seeing here that made it clear to us that this was a airliner. There's two engines there. See the engine slung beneath the wings? That is a typical layout of a commercial jetliner, and there the wings sweep back there. I've kind of messed up the picture. President Bush is speaking. Let's listen.
Education. I do want to thank the folks here at the Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
And the indication we are getting is the president will get on a plane and head immediately to Washington, D.C., his events canceled. In case you're just now joining us, planes crashed into the upper floors of both World Trade Center towers minutes apart just a short time ago. A horrific scene of explosions and fires that have left gaping holes in the 110-story buildings.
Joe Cantamesa is the former lead investigator for the attack on the World Trade Center back in 1993, and now we are hearing confirmation, Joe. It's coming, I'm sure, as no surprise to you, from President George W. Bush that this is an apparent terrorist attack.
Well, as he points out, it is. I think right now everyone's a little subdued. They want to get their resources into full swing right now. Again, as I mentioned earlier, to identify any other immediate and potential threats. I think probably the best news that I heard is they have actually locked down part of the city, closed the tunnels, and suspended traffic. I mean, what happens, you know, in the time that immediately follows this terrible tragedy is going to be pretty critical to the investigation and how things unfold.
Are there any number of organizations out there with the scope, Joe, to pull off this type of attack?
If it was a single incident, I would say there probably are a half a dozen that might have the resources or the drive to accomplish an act of this type. To see multiples closely coordinated, I think that probably limits us to one or two highly probable sources of that information, and I don't think there's going to be any surprise as this investigation unfolds.
And obviously one of those would be the terrorist network of Osama bin Laden. What can you tell us about it?
Well, clearly he is the most aggressive, best funded, and probably best organized of all of the groups around the globe. And his interest, focus, and rhetoric has clearly, you know, supported this particular type of an act. And I would say that that is more likely than not where we're going to wind up investigatively.
And for our viewers who are unfamiliar with Osama bin Laden, he is one of the CIA's most wanted men, a hero for many young people in the Arab world, but he has been indicted for the deaths of more than 200 people. He's been called the most serious threat to U.S. national security. He appears as though he is always poised to strike again. Immensely wealthy man and a very private man. He has been granted a safe haven by Afghanistan's ruling Taliban movement. And during his time in hiding, he has called for a holy war against the United States and specifically for the killing of Americans and Jews. He is reported to be able to rally anywhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 fighters for his terrorist cause. He is suspected of helping set up an Islamic training center, in fact, several of them, to prepare soldiers to fight in all parts of the world, in particular against the United States.
Joe, what can you add to that description of Osama bin Laden?
I think that's a pretty clear and very accurate. While he is, again, organized, he's been very good at being elusive. He has great protection, and money can buy a lot of protections. However, I think we're going to see some unprecedented resources put forth now to determine if, in fact, he is responsible and whatever else may be on the agenda.
And where are the other countries, what other governments are likely to be able to provide us the most significant help if it turns out that this may have been a terrorist act by Osama bin Laden?
There are several, and I really wouldn't care to get over the details that I might be familiar with for fear that I might violate something that I would not care to. There are, just suffice it to say that the Western world has been all working actively to identify and locate him, as well as identify the components of his organization.
He is very elusive, moving from mud huts and tent cities and caves at least 3 times a week, taking other precautions. The U.S. tried at one point in time with satellite surveillance to launch an attack on one of his camps, hoping he was there. It turned out he was not. Joining us now on the telephone is Mary Schiavo, who is the former Inspector General of the FAA and NTSB, excuse me, and an MSNBC analyst, aviation analyst. Mary, I want to play the videotape once again for our new viewers who are just now joining us of what appears to be a swept-wing plane, a commercial jet, flying into the second tower, striking it, and there you see the massive explosion, a horrific scene there. What are your thoughts?
Well, aside from the horror and sadness and shock, my thoughts are also one of extreme outrage for a couple of reasons. One, we have placed so much of our security and our prevention measures for terrorist attacks on aviation in this country on what we call risk and threat assessments, which are performed by the FBI. And I worked in aviation security, very vigorously for years, and we always went back to the FBI threat assessments, which said that the risk of domestically staged aviation terrorism was very low. And for that reason, we did not put the resources into the kinds of security measures we are really capable of doing in our aviation. And this proves that over the past several years, that was a very complacent attitude, and it was wrong. And this is literally going to change everything about how we do aviation. We now have horrible, horrible, tragic evidence that it is possible to stage perhaps the worst act of aviation terrorism ever in the United States on domestic soil, on a domestic flight.
And Mary, I mean, how is it possible within minutes that two planes could be hijacked, and that is apparently what the FBI is very seriously looking at, and we are getting reports that an American Airlines plane may have been one of them hijacked. How is that possible?
It's possible because we place a lot of our security on these risk assessments, and the risk assessments have said it's not possible to do it in this country. So what we do is we tolerate pretty much rather open coming and going at our airports and with our aviation on the trust that we don't think it will happen here. And that has been a terrible shortcoming, which many people have criticized for the past several years. And the way it happens is we allow it to happen, quite frankly. And this is so outrageous, particularly if the reports of a warning are true. This has absolutely shades of the Pan Am 103 tragedy, where there were warnings. Many people discounted them, but at least the embassy personnel got
Mary,
warnings for that one.
Let me interrupt you, if I may, and please stand by. We're going to join WNBC's coverage right now as we see the thick brown and black smoke billowing from the Twin Towers.
A few moments ago, like there was an explosion of some kind here at the Pentagon. We're on the E-ring of the Pentagon. We have a window that faces out toward the Potomac, toward the Kennedy Center. We haven't been able to see or hear anything after the initial blast. I just stepped out in the hallway. Security guards were herding people out of the building, and I saw just a moment ago as I looked outside, a number of construction workers who have been working here have taken flight. They're running as far away from the building as they can right now. I hear no sirens going off in the building. I see no smoke, but the building shook for just a couple of seconds. The windows rattled, and security personnel are doing what they can momentarily to clear this part of the building. Again, I have no idea whether it was part of the construction work, whether it was an accident, or what is going on. We're going to try to find those details and get them to you as soon as possible. But interestingly enough, one intelligence official here in the building said when he saw what appeared to be the coordinated attack on the World Trade Center, his advice was to stay away from the outside of the building today, just in case. Now, again, nobody has any indications of exactly what happened, but it appears that there has been some kind of, it felt like a small blast of some kind. Again, the windows shook, the building shook, the windows rattled, and people, if I'm looking out the window now, and the construction workers are still keeping a good, oh, I'm sorry. The construction workers are still keeping a distance. That's all I can see. And I see no other extracurricular security activity right outside. But to get more information, I'm going to have to break away and walk down the hallway and see what it is exactly that happened here just a few moments ago.
Mick, see what you can find out. Please be careful and let us know what's going on.
What appears to have been a twin terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, two planes minutes apart, deliberately crashing into the upper floors of the World Trade Center on the southern tip of Manhattan. The New York Stock Exchange is closed. All airports in New York are closed. The Lincoln Tunnel is closed. The Situation Room is now the focus of attention in the nation's capital. The president on his way back from Florida to Washington, Condoleezza Rice, National Security Advisor, and other top officials now heading to the Situation Room at the White House. Chris?
President George W. Bush was in Sarasota, Florida. He was reading to children in a classroom when he was whispered into his ear by his Chief of Staff, Andrew Card, about what had happened at the World Trade Center. A short time later, he appeared on national television calling this an apparent terrorist attack.
Exactly
now, these are the pictures right now outside of the
According
Pentagon.
to one U.S. Army
Let's listen to Jim McLeshevsky, our Pentagon correspondent.
In a full trot. He said that it appears that a bomb was detonated at the heliport. The heliport is a helicopter landing area right next to the Pentagon, just adjacent to the E-ring. The offices nearest the heliport area are U.S. Army, Reserve officers, and the Army Reserve offices are located there. But as you can see, it appears to be a pretty significant blast. To give you some perspective, we are almost on the opposite side of the building, the world's largest office building. And as I reported to you, we could feel the building shake and the windows rattle. And as I was in the hallway just a few moments ago, I could smell an acrid kind of smoke, the kind of almost what you'd smell when a fluorescent light goes bad, that kind of ballast smell. And authorities are clearing the building. I don't know if you can hear the sirens outside right now, but it appears that in what I think people here in the building are already describing as a highly sophisticated, coordinated attack, not only against the World Trade Center, but against the Pentagon and U.S. military right here in Washington.
Tell me again, I worked at the Pentagon as well, and it is a huge building. I mean, it's miles and miles of offices. At what location did this seem to have detonated?
It's at the heliport. The heliport, which is as you sit in the Pentagon, you have the Potomac River and Washington, D.C. on one side, and the heliport is located almost exactly on the opposite side of the building, along one of the highways. Easily accessible, even though that they've increased security here significantly at the Pentagon within the past couple of years.
Mick,
that area...
I want to mention to you, Mick, that we are hearing, again, unconfirmed reports that this was the result of a plane crashing in the area as well.
I have no idea, Katie. All I know is that people who were in the building who came running from that part of the building thought it was a bomb of some kind.
This is in Sarasota, Florida. President George W. Bush about to board Air Force One, heading back very quickly to Washington, canceling all of his events there, and he will be heading over to the Situation Room with top officials, including National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice. There you can see people hurrying back up into Air Force One.
And we are reading on the Associated Press wires that the West Wing of the White House has now been evacuated. The West Wing of the White House. Let's go back and listen to the continuing description at the Pentagon by Jim McLeshevsky.
Evacuated from the Pentagon?
Well, nobody's given us the official word yet, but I think that's probably a safe bet. Thank goodness that was a helicopter that just flew by. I'm just a little nervous right now when you hear aircraft go past, but they have, in fact, evacuated that portion of the building. Usually they have sirens that go off in the building alerting you to the fact that it's time to get out. I haven't heard those yet, but just judging by the pictures, it's clear that that part of the building that is not damaged, at least, has been evacuated. Like I said, in the hallway, it was pandemonium. People were rushing from their offices, rushing outside.
And you're in your office at the Pentagon right now, Mick, reporting to us?
I am in the office, but I'm at the opposite side of where this crash occurred.
All right, why don't you see if you can gather some more information. Please, again, be careful, Mick, and we're going to go to Matt, who's going to be talking with Jamie Gangel.
All right, yeah, Katie, thank you very much. I'm joined by
the White House and the Capitol in Washington, D.C. are now being evacuated. We have confirmation that in light of what looks to be a series of attacks against public facilities in the United States, including U.S. government facilities, 2 plane crashes into the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, and then just a short time ago, an Associated Press reporter saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the Pentagon. Smoke is billowing out of the Pentagon, and now the West Wing of the White House, and the Capitol are being evacuated.
We are also getting word that one of the two planes that crashed into the World Trade Center was hijacked after takeoff from Boston. This according to a U.S. official, and he cited as evidence of that a transmission from the hijacked plane, one of the two planes that crashed into the World Trade Center shortly before rush hour, or during rush hour this morning, shortly before 9 o'clock on the southern tip of Manhattan, the World Trade Center, which, as you see there on the right-hand side of your screen, still continues to burn, thick black smoke billowing up above. We saw, in fact, live on television, the second plane crash into the World Trade Center second tower.
We have former Governor Mario Cuomo from New York on the phone. If you could hold on for 1 second, Governor, we are just getting word from the FAA that all planes across the United States have been grounded. The Federal Aviation Administration is grounding all planes across the United States in the wake of terrorist attacks, apparent terrorist attacks, and continuing terrorist threats. In addition, the White House and the Capitol in Washington, D.C. have been evacuated. And you can see the picture now, the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers in Lower Manhattan, both apparently the subject of terrorist attacks. Separate planes flying in to those towers less than an hour ago, and a third plane flying into the Pentagon just minutes ago. That you can also see to the left of your screen, smoke billowing. Again, former Governor Mario Cuomo of New York is on the phone with us. Governor, thank you so much for being with us. Let me just get your reaction at this point.
Same as every other American, it's a terrible act of barbaric terrorism. It's frightening in many ways, recalling the previous attack on the World Trade Center. One of the immediate problem, obviously, is to put out the fire, literally. Try to deter any other acts of terrorism that are planned for about this time. Do what is necessary immediately, but longer range. The difficulty here is probably this is more difficult to deal with, this kind of terrorism, than any act of any nation which might be alien to you and drop a bomb on you, because you can fight a nation. This won't be national. This will be individuals. Maybe they'll never even be identified as associated with any nation, and therefore it's harder to deal with. Also, I would hope that at one point, at least we discover from the terrorists what their grievance is, because you can't have enough FBIs and enough police and enough National Guards to defend yourself against these attacks. It's impossible. What you have to do is deter the hate, deter the provocation, find out what the cause is, and attempt to deal with that. But unless the terrorists identify at least the cause they're seeking to serve, this will be tremendously difficult, if not impossible, to deal with. Unless we know why they're doing it, we will not be able to prevent it.
We are just hearing, Governor, that the Pentagon, in addition, has been evacuated, so we add that to the list of evacuations, the White House and the Capitol building.
See, the dimensions are already enormous, and they may grow worse, but the problem will not change. The problem is these are terrorists driven by hate and perhaps even a speculation, a religious ardor that says they can save their souls by doing this. You cannot protect yourself perfectly against them. And so we must ascertain what the cause is. What is it that's driving them to do it? And can the cause be dealt with? Probably this will be a greater challenge to our intelligence and our ability to be diplomatic and intelligent about negotiation than it is a challenge to our strength as a military power.
The FAA is telling us that the planes that are already in the air will continue to their destinations, but all other planes in airspace above the United States have been grounded. Governor Cuomo, I understand that your successor, George Pataki, is in New York City right now. There are a number of state offices, aren't there, Governor, in the, in the Twin Towers?
My office, and I think the governor moved his office out of the World Trade Center.